The Phasing Line podcast is brought to you by generous patrons at patreon.com. If you like what we do here every 2 weeks on the show, consider making a reoccurring donation at phasinglinepodcast.com and click that big ol' Patreon button on the website. Or if you want, you can just go straight to the Patreon page, patreon.com/phasinglinepodcast, and make a donation. No donation is too small, but we really appreciate your support of the Phasing Line. Welcome back to the Phasing Line podcast. My name is Marty Sulloway. This is the show where we talk about just about everything that has to do with ham radio, be it the lights at the top of your really, really tall tower, the microphone I'm talking into right now, the radios in front of you, or the amplifier that you just blew up. This is the place where we talk about everything. Again, with my fearless co-host / person who actually does all the hard work here is Sterling Coffee and 0SSC. What up, buddy?
You're talking about lights on the top of beacons. Now you really got me going.
Yeah.
The red ones and stroby ones.
We can do our own light
ones
shows.
That have, I really wanted to put, but I think it's against FAA laws, to put a basically a RF detecting circuit inside of a light bulb, inside of an LED that would flash whenever RF is detected on our ham radio tower. So like if you're doing CW, the light will literally pulse CW, or if you're doing voice, it kind of like will modulate with your voice, or if you're doing radio or whatever. Point is, if there's RF coming out, the light would turn on. That was so cool. But then I dug into the FAA rules, and I was like, well, no, if you have lights on towers, then you have to follow the rules, which is lame. But I don't know.
Hey, play by the rules,
get away
right?
with something. Yeah. But yeah, this is in 0SSC. We haven't done a podcast for kind of a long time.
Not that
considering
that
the amount
bad.
of stuff that has happened since our last episode 19. This is episode 20, by the way, and the numbers are correct. 20. I fixed that on episode 19, so now if you go back and listen, it's going to be like episode 1, 2, 5, 8, 18, 42, and then 20. So I went back and fixed all of the numberings at the website, but we didn't fix the audio or anything. So you're going to hear us being confused about the number.
That's okay, because you're used to.
Now it's 20.
If you listen to this podcast, you're used to us saying gibberish stuff. So that's just know.
And it doesn't. The episode number doesn't even matter, but some people want it like that, so they can listen to it sequentially and yada yada yada. So, but yeah,
we're
also I did update the website too, so now it's got all of the episodes. When you go to phasinglinepodcast.com, instead of going to the post list, you go to a front page that says how to listen, post, episode archive. If you want to see just a list of all of the episodes 1 through 19 and the promo, you go to episode archive. If you want to see the actual posts with like the information, the show notes, if you will, you click on posts. How to listen takes you to the page where you go find how to listen on iTunes or RSS or YouTube, Stitcher Play, Overcast, Pocket Cast.
Anything that'll take an RSS feed, we'll take it.
So yeah.
The
All right,
other
with that
thing,
out of the way,
the other housekeeping announcement is, I think we told you guys yet last time, but I'll tell you again. Patreon is now by episode, so we don't put an episode. We don't charge you money. We think it makes sense, and it's a lot more fair. We put out a lot of episodes. You pay us for what you give us what you think we are worth to you, and per episode
instead of per month. Before it was per month, and if we didn't make an episode for a month, then you basically paid for nothing, which is pretty sad. So that way,
even though our expenses,
anyway.
I wish hosting didn't work like this too, but it doesnn't. But to all of you who think that's pretty cool and want to help us out, phasinglinepodcast.com is the website where all of that stuff is that Sterling just talked about. And if you click that donate button, it's real snazzy. You could do PayPal or Patreon. And all of those things are very much appreciated. Right?
Yep.
Well, we haven't done an episode in a while. But ham radio in the world goes on without us. Well, actually, with us.
And the world went to crap for a while, too.
Actually, the world does not go on without us, because hams have been kind of bailing the world out lately.
Well, yeah. Talk about Puerto Rico. Oh, my gosh.
Just
now, CNN and Motherboard and a lot of local news agencies are starting to report on the amateur radio response to Puerto Rico, and it's really cool. But that was going on when the hurricane just hit, hurricanes. Irma and Maria
and Irma and Harvey, all within 3 weeks.
Yeah. And so we saw a couple days ago, the ARRL put out a call for the 50 hams to go down and support with health and welfare. And I'm sure you know more because you've been following this a lot better than I have because I'm lame and everything. So you take it.
So earlier this week, the ARRL announced that they are partnering with the Red Cross. I may be getting this wrong. My friend Mike Corey at headquarters, who's probably working 24/7 just about now, is probably telling me everything I'm doing wrong here. But from what I understand, the ARRL partnered with the Red Cross. I believe they actually have had a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, for a long time. But I think this is one of the first big cases where they're actually acting on it. And what happened is as the Red Cross said, well, we will really need some hams in the Caribbean and in Puerto Rico. And ARRL said, how many you want? And they said 50. So just today, 50 hams went to Atlanta to meet before they get distributed to the Caribbean. And from my and obviously Puerto Rico, mainly Puerto Rico. But my understanding from reading things is that they comprise 25 two-person teams. And each team gets a kit with radio equipment and wire antennas and whatnot and a WinLink modem so they can do WinLink. And I guess they're passing health and welfare traffic back and trying to populate Red Cross databases. We really got to get an expert on it about it. Maybe we will. But
essentially, I think it's at this point, it's a bunch of families who need to contact their families on the mainland. And so hams are going to be the ones in charge of communicating that traffic. There was the CNN article and the CNN interview. They interviewed Mike Corey, or actually maybe it was a Motherboard, or maybe it was some local thing.
I saw Mike Corey
Val
got
interviewed as well.
And Val interviewed for a store in Connecticut. I just want to say one thing. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention all the traffic that's been passed out on 20 meters. Because man, it has just been incredible. It's been a week. I think we're on day 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
for the last week,
it's 27th of September, so someone can check us on that.
For the last week or so, people have been passing out traffic where there's a few stations in Puerto Rico, with battery power and a little bit of gas for their generators. Not enough. That's actually one of the issues. Have been reading off lists of people and their loved ones' phone numbers, so we can, to make a social media joke here, although there's nothing really funny about it, mark them safe. As you know, on Facebook after the disaster, you can mark them safe. Well, with no electricity, running water, and phones, that's real hard to do. So what has been happening is people have been, a few stations in Puerto Rico have been relaying lists of phone numbers to people in the U.S., and those people have been making those very emotional phone calls to people's loved ones to tell them that, yes, your family is okay. And I did over 100 of them this week, and I posted on Facebook on it a little bit. But it was very emotional and very rewarding, and it's still going on. 14270 is where you can find that during the day.
I need to listen to it. I've been really lazy and haven't been listening to the actual radio traffic. I've been just reading the news.
But there's been news coming out. That's real good for radio PR.
Yeah. And not just through the AWL, through EHAM, QRZ, blah, blah, blah. Actually, funny story, Angel Vasquez from Puerto Rico, KP.
Whiskey Papa 3 Romeo, Mr. Arecibo.
Papa 3R. He is a technical leader at Arecibo.
Yeah, he's like the operations director. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's a ham, so he's actually been giving us information about the state of the radio telescope, Arecibo, down there, which is really cool. And I've been looking at, they've been talking about it on HamSci, the HamSci email listserv, your email group, I guess, which was like, whoa, what hobby does this? The operations manager of Arecibo, a radio telescope, is a ham. Arecibo was affected, and so that guy is telling everybody else, Arecibo has problems. It's going to take this long to fix. We don't have this much gas. The
road is blocked
trying
with
to get things
debris.
Back together.
Angel's a really nice guy. I chatted with him for 20 minutes in Dayton this year.
I met him in Dayton too. And it's just whoa. But now the mainstream's got a hold of it. So big CNN Motherboard and then
this
the
is
local,
great PR,
CBS affiliates,
great
Fox
ham
affiliates.
radio PR. Because when somebody says, "Well, ham radio died 30 years ago," do people still do that stuff with the long dots, the dots and the dashes and the beeps, and beep, 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 beep.
The long dots and
the
all
short
the
knobs in the basement?
This is what's going to be.
This is
what's going to be reported on in the future. So you remember Walter Cronkite, and basically his "What is Ham Radio" or "Hello Radio" thing. that was like, that's like a 10-year-old video now, and it's used footage from hurricanes from like the 90s. Now we have like it kind of sounds bad. I don't mean it in a bad way, obviously. Like, yay, there was a hurricane. Amateur radio is going to be so great now. It's like, no. But that, like, what has happened now is like tomorrow's attention grabber. Like, when the big earthquake hits, when the next big hurricane comes, when a big natural disaster happens, amateur radio is really going to do something about it after the fact. I mean, they can't.
And most important.
But it does save lives.
Yeah, and
in the flood, like in the floods in Houston, Houston and the mainland hurricanes here in the U.S. were different because you had Zello, you had cell networks that were working, but things like places like Puerto Rico and southern parts like the Keys and Miami, they really got ravaged, so they didn't have that. So that's where hams like really took to flight. So
also, like, I mean, yes to all that, and also think about the emotional reactions of the people who've gotten those phone calls this week that, yes, your loved one is okay. How'd you find out?
Yeah.
Because of ham radio. Next time somebody asks them, what do you know about ham radio? They're going to say, they're the ones that told me my daughter and my son-in-law were safe.
Yeah. So good on all of the
all of
mainstream
this is
media for taking a good
there is no fake news involved.
Also, props to most of them for not capitalizing ham, which is my biggest pet peeve. Or like saying ham is some acronym that means like Hertz, Allen, Marconi or something like that. It's stupid. Go to etymology of ham radio on Wikipedia to read the real story.
There's plenty of debates on it. I don't think we'll get into it.
Yeah, but you don't capitalize it like it's an acronym. It's just ham, H-A-M, lowercase. AWL used to have a media rule to not call it ham radio, call it amateur radio, and capitalize the A and the R, but that was just kind of like a conventional thing. It's not actually like a proper noun or whatever. Wow, I'm getting really pedantic. Anyway, back to Puerto Rico and Dominica. Let's go on to the next. Dominica.
I think I'm pronunciating it right. It's definitely not Dominica. I want to say it's.
I was thinking Dominican, but it's just missing.
Dominica, I believe, is the correct
right.
pronunciation. Pronunciation.
I'm an engineer.
But we're fake radio pronunciators, so what can we say? But Dominica was also really, really, really wiped out. And it's really heartbreaking, actually. A good friend of mine, Brian, N1LI, has been down there a couple of times, most recently in November, I believe, and he's been training hams on how to do ham radio and licensing them. And he was also involved with something called Haminica, in which they were using something called Hamsphere, which is a way of simulating ham radio, to see if people are interested in ham radio and emergency communications. And I believe they have one singular repeater on the island. And amateur radio has been playing a big role, and there's been a GoFundMe set up to raise money to ship equipment down there because they're in desperate need of equipment. And I believe today they sent down 10 handy talkies. But of course, that's nothing. Nothing. They need a lot more than that. They're actually talking about getting ALE radios down there. And there's a GoFundMe set up right now that we'll link in the description below so you can help because they really need money right now. These people really need your support. And I think it's, especially if you can afford it, it's a really nice thing you can do to support hams that could just use a little bit of help right now to save and support their precious communities. Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm, for sure. And I mean, if you can afford it, I'm sure you can afford $5. You can afford $10. Like you don't have to commit your whole life and your left arm for, donations like these. Your money spread out over a wide area is just as good as, well, I don't know. I'm kind of like, is there a debate on like funneling your money into one thing versus spreading it over a wide area? It's really hard to pick a donation thing for Maria because there's hundreds and thousands of them. But we hams, we know what's up. So go support Hurricane Maria Dominica Ham Radio. It's GoFundMe.com, Hurricane-Maria-Dominica.
And we'll link it down below. I mean, I think that has to do with, like, whenever there's a disaster, it's who do you donate money to? And I don't want to get into that discussion because there's politics involved, and God knows how politics works out at ham radio.
This is a ham radio podcast. Get those politics out of my ham radio.
But I think, But I think that with ham radio, it's kind of uncomfortable, especially in these situations. I find that it's more valuable right now. While the money is important, having me on the airwaves is also really important. Having those people on 20 meters being able to relay is really important. So we can provide that critical link.
So last weekend on the 22nd, 21st, weekend before last, on the 16th and 17th and 15th of September was the DCC, TAPR Digital Communications Conference, and I went to that. Gary also went to that, and you'll obviously at some point see his videos. He recorded every single one of the talks, but the DCC came to St. Louis, so I had no excuse to not go, so I definitely went. I went all 3 days. I actually got out of work a half day to go to the Friday session, and it was incredible. Like the amount of technical expertise in one room. It was only about 120 people there, so I thought it was wow. Like this is smaller than I expected, but the actual like hardcore technical people of ham radio, the programmers, the hardware makers, even the makers like Jerry Ellsworth and Amy Herndon. So Jerry's AI60K and Amy is KM7 Fox Zulu Echo. They were both there, which was really surprising because at the same time there was conferences like GNU Radio Conference, there was a HackerCon or the Uncon, the Hackaday Unconference. So it's really cool that they chose to come to little old St. Louis to hang out with a bunch of old men talking about the technical sides of ham radio, and boy, did we talk about the technical sides of ham radio.
Was it too technical? I won't say it was too technical. You're an engineer. Was it too nerdy?
Well, nerdy and technical are two different things. Yes, it was very nerdy, but also so is ham radio. But it wasn't. I don't think so. Some of the discussions got really deep into the nitty-gritty details. I mean, so I met for the first time Bruce Perrins and Chuck Testa, Chris Testa. He's the guy who does White Box. I met Jerry, obviously, for the first time, and Amy. Let's see who else was there. All of the ham-sci folk, almost all of the ham-sci students were there. The Dr. Nathaniel Frissell, and I think 4 or 5 of his students were there talking about their data. So they actually displayed their data, but nothing was in a overly boring, like technical, mathy thing, except for maybe Steve Hicks was there talking about flex radio, about noise and how it affects the radio circuit, kind of like big picture circuit, not the actual circuit components. And how it factors in. So we talked about decibels, we talked about dBFS, we talked about noise figure, noise factor. That got really intense into
lots
the
of number
actual like
theory in there.
Science and math and stuff. So I wrote down a ton of notes. Actually, where's my notebook? Aha! I wrote down, I think, about 12 pages of worth of notes, just general notes. And no, this is the wrong notebook. Anyway, it was very listenable, and all of the presenters did a very good job of being a good public speaker, addressing questions. They were very easy to talk to after the fact. And one of the really cool things we had was lightning talk. So one of the guys that did a talk there didn't show up because he was sick, and so the group kind of decided off of Steve's. And Steve is like the president of TAPR. Forget his last name too. But we were like, hey, what do we do? Lightning talks? Everybody like come up with a topic that you can talk for 5 minutes on? Pull up slides if you want, and we'll have 5 people come up, give 5-minute presentations about a quick elevator speech about a certain thing that you want to know. So I was like, oh, really cool. I can talk about Faraday RF because Brent and Bryce Salmi aren't here. And Brent and Bryce are the guys behind Faraday RF, which is a little data radio that is essentially... it's hardware defined, and it's essentially the education of the digital radio space in ham radio. I'm waving my hands a lot because I'm like trying to think of my words, but you can't see me on the microphone, obviously. Marty can, and he's like, why are you waving your hands
I was
so
looking
much?
at something else, but sure.
Anyway, they kind of like are trying to modernize APRS and make high altitude ballooning, have faster data. It's 900 megahertz. It's 500 kilobit per second, and it uses very common, very cheap components. And they're actually selling now, they're selling pairs of Faraday RF radios. They're very, primitive in terms of, they're very immature. So like their software that they have currently on them it works, but it's like you can only really send messages between Faraday radios, like packets. You can also do APRS. So all of that development is currently ongoing on GitHub right now, on the Faraday RF GitHub. Anyway, that's like the 30-second compression of my talk that I gave about Faraday RF. Other people gave talks on things like the amateur radio emergency disaster node thing. It's a thing where they're using LoRa, which is the long range Internet of Things standard that came out, converting that into ham radio use, and then creating nodes for like very low rate but high range, long range data over line of sight, give or take a little bit, using LoRa. With the mission of sending these really cheap radios that cost like, I don't know, 25 $25 a piece. They use Adafruit Feather and Adafruit headers and connecting pieces that basically sandwich together and create a little radio with a little display. They're really cool. Distributing those out to emergency areas so that people can
are they receivers
talk to each
or
other
are they
using a
transmitters?
mesh. They're transceivers, so their ideas that they mesh together and using LoRa, LoRa,
what frequency again?
transmit. These are 900 megahertz. So a lot of them over a wide area. They're very low power, so they don't actually have that much range, but you put one next to another, next to another, next to another, you can have a chain of them. And the standard's already written in, so a lot of the work's already been done. This guy's just taking that and putting it to amateur radio use. So that's really cool. Beartooth, for example, is one that has a commercial use of LoRa, and then lots and lots of IoT things like lights and dimmers and window switches and I don't know, things like that use LoRa because it's a very easy to implement, very low cost, very good range, good robustness data radio. There was like 2 or 3 others. I'm gonna get my notebook real quick and go through them real quick. TAPR was really cool. It was in St. Louis. That was really cool. Next year's TAPR is going to be really huge because all of these new guys coming out with these really modern data radios, these really like, especially with like Codec 2 and FreeDV. There was a lot of talk about that. There was a guy there who actually goes to SAUE, Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. His name was O'Brien. It was Brady O'Brien. He's coding a TDMA modem for amateur radio using FreeDV, using Codec 2, which is what DMR does, the TDMA where you have 2 people on one frequency, but for everybody. So I thought that was
for ham radio too.
Freaking cool. So he's working on that in the open source with Bruce Perrins and with David Rowe, who built the FreeDV, the SM1000.
Was Robin Kutshaw there?
No, AA4 something. He wasn't there.
Yeah, the
So,
D-Star guy?
I don't think there were any D-Star representatives per se. There was no D-Star talks that I know of, that I remember off the top of my head. If I can find my notes, that'd be great. But there were talks like Hamside did their talk. They had a really cool GPS simulation or GPS data using total electron content and watching the TEC change vary over the Eclipse path. There was Open HPSDR design and development talks. There was the DX, what's it called? Not DX Summit, the DX Display. The guy who made that, he showed us.
You talking about DXA?
No. DX, maybe. DX Display, if you go to DX Display.
What is it? Maybe I'll know what it is.
dxdisplay.caps.ua.edu is a very modern, basically cluster. You doing RF propagation analytics. And he showed us this really cool thing that has what he called a D watcher for DX and D-Star. So it would literally you have to download this thing onto Windows. It's an executable, but you can put in a call sign to monitor, and it will look out over the whole D-Star call sign routing system, the gateway server, I guess. Let you, and whenever that person keys their mic, it will notify you, which is kind of a cool thing. I think it's kind of
creepy.
Well, come on, it's ham radio, but like it's like similar to DX clusters. So you can, instead of you actually spotting somebody and looking for them, it's automatic, and so you just type in a call sign and you see where they were, what reflector they were on, or whatever, So that was pretty cool.
Well, Sterling, I just want to cover one thing before we wrap it up here. I want to talk about De-expeditions.
Oh yeah, those things. I haven't done a
Those
de-expedition since K5D, or worked a de-expedition. That was a long time ago.
K5D was like 2008.
Yeah, I still have a YouTube video of it. Y'all should go see that with my long hair.
But anyways, there's kind of two big ones coming up. First in January is Bouvet, 3 Yankee 0 Zulu. Bouvet Island, which is like the hardest place to get to, most remote, blah, 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 real cold.
Yeah.
Huge team, huge budget, big ship. And that's going to Bouvet. That's 3Y0. I think they're number 2 on the most wanted. And then in June will be the KH-1D expedition. We don't know what their call sign is yet, but that's to Baker Island, which is near Fiji and American Samoa, way, way, way out there, sort of.
Yeah, I'm not gonna work on. Maybe if I'm from my
it should
from
be
my
too
club
bad
station at work, but not from home.
Anyways, I'm actually involved with that expedition.
Really?
I'm the media pilot.
Oh, that's cool.
All things social media and digital. That's me, and I want you to check out both of these. I'm not involved with 3i0, but I'll tell you anyways. Go to their website, give them some love. They all need money, really badly actually. And then go to their Facebook pages. That's actually where you'll find a lot of good information where they're on. You know, if you want to beat the pile up, check those out. Twitter too, and they both have Facebook groups. Join those groups. I think nothing bad will come out of that.
Are they actually going to be tweeting and Facebooking out their?
So I don't think either of them will have.
They won't have any internet there.
The team members will not have fast enough internet, but the pilots certainly will be.
Gotcha. I guess they can drive a satellite boat down there, or a boat with satellite internet.
Yeah. So and Began and Mersat and stuff like that. All right. Well, let's wrap this one up. I'm getting tired.
Yeah, I'm out of words. My throat hurts and I need to go to bed.
PhasingLinePodcast.com. That's the place where you find the site, how to listen, things you can listen to that we've already yapped about. PhasingLinePodcast.com. Click the donate button is where you can give us money.
Yeah, this episode's
all
really
those
been,
are good places.
This episode's really been all about giving people money. So consider us.
Money is important
when
right
you're
now.
also considering.
Pick somebody else. Take a week off from us. Still give us money, but give a couple bucks to Puerto Rico right now. Puerto Rico.
Yep.
I have a terrible accent. I apologize. Until then, we'll see you real soon. Hopefully next week or the week after that. And for now, I'm Marty Sulloway, KC1CWF.
And I'm Sterling in 0SSC.
And we will say 73. Bye-bye for now.